In May of 2011, U.S. forces killed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan. That story is well known. What received far less attention, at least at the time, was how intelligence agencies confirmed bin Laden's presence in that compound before the raid. They ran a fake vaccination campaign. Here's what happened. The CIA organized a hepatitis B immunization drive in the Abbottabad neighborhood. The stated purpose was public health. The actual purpose was to collect DNA samples from children in the area. Samples that could be compared against DNA from bin Laden's deceased sister to confirm his family was living there. Now, the CIA has maintained that the actual injections administered were real, that children did receive genuine vaccine doses. And that's technically possible. But there's a significant problem. The hepatitis B vaccine requires multiple doses over time to confer full immunity. The covert nature of this operation meant there probably was no follow-up, no second dose, no third dose. Those children were probably left with incomplete immunization, meaning their health was, in a concrete sense, compromised by this operation. I published this paper in 2012 in a journal that is very forgettable, the Internet Journal of Public Health. And the argument I wanted to make was not primarily about the ethics of the raid itself. It was about the downstream consequences for public health infrastructure, consequences that were entirely predictable, and that I believe were not adequately weighed. Vaccination programs, particularly in Pakistan, already operated in a climate of deep public suspicion. In 2007, 4 years before the bin Laden raid, a polio vaccination campaign in Pakistan failed to reach 160,000 children. The reason? Widespread rumors that it was a foreign conspiracy. A conspiracy to stunt the population growth of Muslims, or to cause impotence, or to advance some other covert agenda. These were not fringe views. They had real traction in communities that had historical reasons to distrust foreign-backed health interventions. Similar suspicions had circulated in Nigeria and other parts of the low-income world regarding polio vaccines. In this environment, the success of any immunization campaign depends heavily on the trust of local religious and community leaders. That trust is fragile, and the public confirmation, from news reports, from the U.S. government's own acknowledgments, that at least one vaccination campaign in Pakistan was in fact a CIA intelligence operation, well, that is precisely the kind of evidence that conspiracy theories are built upon. Except in this case, it wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was true. There's another dimension to this that I want to be direct about: the physical safety of health workers. The 2007 polio scare in Pakistan involved documented cases of violence against the clinicians who administered vaccines. When public trust in a health campaign collapses, the people who bear the greatest risk are the field workers, nurses, vaccinators, community health volunteers, many of whom are local to the communities they serve. They are not intelligence agents. They have no connection to whatever political operation may have co-opted the image of their profession, but they work in the shadow of that co-optation. By confirming that a vaccination campaign was used as intelligence cover, the Abbottabad operation increased the plausibility of exactly the kind of suspicion that gets health workers killed. What I argued in this paper, and what I still believe, is that the damage done here requires an active response, not just a passive acknowledgement that something unfortunate occurred. Steps already being discussed at the time included the WHO and UNICEF developing identification procedures for vaccination workers to make it harder for intelligence operatives to impersonate them. That's a start, but it doesn't address the core problem, which is institutional credibility. What is needed is a clear, joint public statement from governments and international agencies, one that explicitly condemns the use of public health activities as cover for military or intelligence operations, and commits unambiguously that this will not happen in the future. No hedging, no classified carve-outs, a commitment that health workers and the populations they serve can rely on. Public health depends on trust in ways that are easy to underestimate until that trust is gone. It took decades to build the infrastructure and community relationships that make mass vaccination campaigns possible. Some people will argue that the public health response to COVID-19 has changed the trust equation irrevocably. But earlier operations, like the one in Abbottabad, can erode trust in ways that are not easily reversed. This costs lives, often quietly, in the years that follow. This paper was my attempt to put that argument on record. I hope it was useful. So why did I publish in a nothing journal like the Internet Journal of Public Health, which frankly, I don't even think exists anymore? Well, back when I wrote this paper, a decade, 2 decades ago, it was really hard to find a place to publish it. Journals kept on rejecting it for a variety of reasons, most commonly the political content. In fact, when the Internet Journal of Public Health finally agreed to publish it, they issued a disclaimer, which I'd never seen before in an academic paper. The disclaimer essentially said that the content of this paper does not necessarily reflect the views of the publisher or the journal. That's how afraid they were of offending the American government, the military establishment. Now today, this sentiment that intelligence and public health seem to go hand in hand is not controversial, but back then it was. This is a reminder that science is always political.